A football show podcast, Vasivada Party. Charlie O here. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. 40 years in Silicon Valley. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com. Also brand new, the Britannia Arms of Capitola, right on the shores of the Pacific Ocean, right there on the Capitola Village as well. You can get to them. You can get to us every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Also, don't forget our social media posts at 6 o'clock Eastern. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Selection Friday. We'll have them all for you today at 6 o'clock Eastern. The World Series is tonight, NBA, NHL as well, too. We'll give you all the latest news and our selections for each day. Don't forget 3 times on Saturday, twice on Sunday to cover the NFL and NCAA all day long. The Britannia Arms of Capitola is 10 years old on the shores of the Pacific Ocean, located on the end of the Capitola Village near Santa Cruz. Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, 831-464-2583, and then Britannia Arms of Cupertino, 40 years in Silicon Valley, the longest running British pub and restaurant on the border of San Jose and Cupertino. Britannia Arms at Deanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, we get into the NFL for the Friday football show, the start of week 8, the bye week for these two teams are the Las Vegas Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens. So those of you that have fantasy football leagues or are interested in maybe taking a Sunday off from your team, if you're not into it like the rest of us knuckleheads watching every game all the time, have a Sunday off and enjoy yourselves. Last night might be the best game of the weekend, Charlie. I'm looking at the schedule right now. The best game of the weekend, the first time that two teams with a 900 or better winning percentage have faced off on Thursday Night Football. The previously 7-0 Arizona Cardinals hosting the previously 6-1 Green Bay Packers in Arizona. The line was, it ended at 6.5. It went down to 6. The over-under went from 50 to 50.5 to 51. I got it late. I waited. I figured that people think that this is going to be an over game. And sure enough, by the skin of my teeth, it ended up being an under game. Green Bay wins the game 24-21. Aaron Rodgers looked really good yesterday. I mean, he didn't look really good yesterday. 184 yards, under 50% throwing. Give Arizona's defense a lot of credit. 2 touchdowns, so all reliable. Randall Cobb, they recovered 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a fumble and a punt return that Rondale Moore should have gotten away from. Gave them 14 points on the 2 turnovers. The interception in plus territory, the fumble, the muff punt by Rondale Moore of the Arizona Cardinals led to another touchdown. So that's your 14 points right there as well, too. And Kyler Murray, 274 yards, 2 interceptions, a fumble by Moore, as we said, and then the 2 interceptions that Murray had. That was miscommunication at the end. Those that watch the game know we're talking about. A.J. Green didn't even look up for the ball. And Douglas, the cornerback that was on him, or the defensive back that was on him, was able to make the interception, get 3 feet in, and was able to secure a victory after Arizona looked like they were in trouble at 1st and 10 at their own 1-yard line. They were able to extend the game and sure enough move down the field after they had stopped Green Bay from going in. That was the other part of the over-under too. They had stopped Green Bay from going in on 4 downs to begin with, and they gave themselves a chance to at least go down there and tie for a field goal. What about the play calling, Charlie? We all know how the game ended, but what about the play calling toward the end? 1 timeout. They still had the 1 timeout. I agree with Cliff Kingsbury. Go for the win. Don't settle for the tie. You're at home. I agree with that call. And if A.J. Green and Kyler Murray were on the same page, then maybe that would have been a touchdown or at least a batted ball down where they would have had another shot, or with less than 10 seconds left, it would have been a field goal, and then we would have seen what it would have happened in overtime. Your thoughts, Charlie, on Thursday Night Football? A great game, though.
Here's my thoughts. These are professional football players. You have a 7-0 team. You're in a critical situation. You can win the game, and you miscommunicate. Somebody's getting fired. Okay? Somebody's getting fired. Somebody's unemployed today. Okay? You can't. Okay. You want to go to the Super Bowl? You want to be a champion? I mean, I know I'm sounding, I know I'm sounding out of my mind here, but come on. You cannot miscommunicate in that situation. I mean, hello. You are in a game. I mean, if nothing else, you have to know enough to be able to punch that ball away to give yourself a chance for the for the field goal. You can't be. I mean, Green turned around. He had no idea where that ball was going. I mean, it was like, huh?
He didn't even turn around.
So, I do not understand that. I mean, it's not enough of an explanation to me to say, oh, we miscommunicated. No, somebody got stupid on that play. I'm sorry. And I'm not talking, you know me. I don't criticize guys for their physical play. Okay. Oh, he didn't run well enough. He didn't cut well enough because I didn't play the game. So I'm never going to criticize a guy like that. But I will criticize people for their concentration levels because every job requires concentration to do it well. And somebody went out to lunch there. Okay. I don't know who it was, whether it was Murray who didn't communicate to Green. Green wasn't focused. Something went on there. And you know what? You cost yourself a big time game there, and it's inexcusable. And somebody's got to pay the price. Somebody.
It'll be interesting to see what the press conference comes out today. They'll have the weekend off. They'll get back on Monday. Both teams will have the weekend off. They'll get back on Monday to practice. I'm sure they're watching the film this morning before they take off for the weekend to go over it. Aaron Rodgers, 22 of 37, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. Randall Cobb, the 2 touchdowns. Randall Cobb only caught 3 passes for 15 yards, and 2 of those were for touchdowns. Aaron Jones had 7 catches out of the backfield. Robert Tonyan had 3 catches, including a big catch down the seam. It led to a touchdown, but Tonyan had to leave the game. Winfrey, their other tight end, 4 catches, 30 yards. DeGuara, 2 catches for 20 yards. Quinius St. Brown, one of my new favorite names, 2 for 12 on there. Aaron Rodgers, Amari Rodgers, 1 catch for 7 yards. They didn't run the ball. A.J. Dillon from Boston College is looking like a real deal here. They're using Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. They rushed for 151 yards, 78 for Dillon, 59 for Aaron Jones. He got 1 rushing touchdown. And then Aaron Rodgers had a critical 11-yard run that got them down to the 1-yard line after a dumb penalty, really moved them back, and it could have cost them a touchdown. Would have helped my under a lot easier if that was the case, but it didn't go that way. Arizona, Murray, 274. 23 of 33, 2 interceptions, a critical interception. They didn't run the ball very well, 20 carries on 74 yards as a team. Edmonds got hurt middle of the game. James Conner, they got from the Steelers, 5 of 22, 6 of 21 for Murray. Boy, he's fast, by the way. There's nobody that can catch him on that field. If he gets out in the open field, DeAndre Hopkins came in questionable with a hamstring. He didn't play very much. He came in late in the game, 2 catches, 66 yards, but a majority of that was on the 1 catch. A.J. Green, 5 for 50. Murray missed a couple of plays. He had Christian Kirk down the middle for a touchdown that he overthrew, 4 catches, 46 yards for Kurtz. And Zach Ertz, 4 catches for 42 yards. He's definitely an added bonus for the Arizona Cardinals going forward here in that game. He's the first NFL player ever to catch a touchdown pass for 2 different teams in one season. And they put that note up on Fox and the NFL Network last night. So here we are with the scenario. The Arizona Cardinals came in 7-0. They're 7-1. Not only are they 7-1, they are not the number 1 team in the NFL anymore by virtue of head-to-head. Now, we're not saying that they're not the best team. I'm not saying they're not the best team. They still might be as time goes on. But as of right now, 7-1, the nod for the number 1 seed, and a very important number 1 seed in this year's playoffs, actually last year too, because you have 7 teams in the playoffs in each conference. Only the number 1 seed will get the bye this year. So that's a huge win for the Green Bay Packers if they are planning to take a week off, which might be good for Aaron Rodgers. He's so smart anyway. He doesn't need to worry about any lapse in time or anything like that if there's a playoff. So that's a huge deal for a number 1 seed in each conference because they're the only team that gets a bye, Charlie. And this was a huge victory for Green Bay. By the way, you notice the names I did not mention yesterday in the game. Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, even Robert Tonyan got hurt in the middle of the game, so they were going to have to go to him. I know some people that went to him for fantasy football, thinking that he might be Rodgers' target for 3 touchdowns or whatever the case may be. But Randall Cobb, Aaron Rodgers, one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite guys back in the prime days, comes through with 2 touchdowns near the red zone or in the red zone near the goal line, and he was able to come through with that with those 2 catches and really help seal the deal. Of course, Arizona's mistakes They have not made very many mistakes this year. Of course, they didn't have J.J. Watt yesterday.
See,
Isaiah Simmons came in.
I was just going to make that point.
Yeah, Isaiah Simmons was questionable
Arizona's credit, you look at that, they held Green Bay to 24 points. And that was impressive because you take a J.J. Watt out of that defense and have to go up against Aaron Rodgers and hold him. What was it, 187 yards passing? I think
187 yards passing. Yeah,
that was impressive. That was impressive. And Arizona fans, look at me now. I know there was a bungle in the jungle there at the end of the game. Okay, we understand that. Okay, it happens to all teams. Don't go out and wallow. Don't sit in an ash heap. Put on sackcloth. Your team's fine. I mean, the preseason predictions were you were going to be in last place in the NFC West. You're 7-1, for heaven's sakes. You're okay. It's all right. Everything's going to be okay. So just calm down. You've got some time off now. Everybody get rested, and it's going to be okay.
Green Bay with their 7-1 record, the number 1 seed in the NFC and overall football, because in the AFC everybody has 2 losses at least. Green Bay will go to Kansas City next week and take on Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, who are struggling right now. We'll see how the Chiefs do this weekend. They got the Monday night game against the Giants on Monday night. Time for the Chiefs maybe to get healthy on the New York Giants.
You mean the scrimmage?
Yeah. And then the Arizona Cardinals will take their act into San Francisco next week, actually Santa Clara, and they'll play the 49ers. The 49ers will play the Bears this weekend in Chicago, and Kansas City, as we said, has the Giants this week. So the Arizona Cardinals are 7-1. The Green Bay Packers are 7-1. A good start to week 8 of the NFL. Lots to talk about in that scenario. From the standpoint of the NFL, we got a lot of week 8 games to go into. We got the point spreads. We got all the lines. We got everything going on right now in terms of the NFL. We're about almost halfway through the year. Don't forget the bye week. This week is for the Raiders and the Ravens, only 2 teams on the bye. So we're going to have 15 games this weekend. One already completed on Thursday night. A really good game last night. A little bit groggy in the middle there with some fundamental mistakes, but for the most part, it was a very entertaining game. In fact, it was so entertaining, I watched it again at midnight on NFL Network replay because I thought it was.
We've got to get you a life.
Yeah, we got to give me a life. Well, I mean, I did have alcohol next to me, so that might have helped me a little bit. But it was either that or Regina King on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and I like her, but I went back to the football game instead. So. Or
Regina, I'm going to call Regina. You're going to get a call today.
Yeah, that's fine. She can come on the show too. I know she's a big football fan too. So.
Oh, and I like her. She's one of my favorites. So
we'll get on there. All right, the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, 40 years in Silicon Valley on the border of San Jose and Cupertino. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. The Britannia Arms of Capitola, 10 years on the shore of the Pacific Ocean in the Capitola Village. Beautiful Capitola Village. Anybody got on my social media yesterday? Saw the photos of how clear it was yesterday for an October day. I know the East Coast is struggling in the Southeast with the weather, but it was gorgeous out there yesterday. Facebook.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been to California, October, Bay Area, Santa Cruz, Capitola, Carmel, this is the time of year. This is the beautiful time.
Britannia Arms of Capitola, Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, 831-464-2583. The Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday football show. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live. If you miss any of it, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Make the Money and Run Friday football show will have a preview of the entire NFL Week 8 for Sunday and for Monday night. We'll spend a lot of time with the Week 8 games. Back in 30 seconds with the continuation of the Friday football show. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Siva Party and Charlie O, your hosts. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Party Charlie O here. This is the Friday football show live on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube. If you miss any of it, we talked about the Packers and the Cardinals' terrific game last night. Green Bay with the 24-21 victory, 7-1 against the Arizona Cardinals, who are 7-1 also. Remember, the number one seed gets the only bye in the NFL this year. The Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Where are we at here? Oh, wrong one.
There we go.
There you go. Britannia Arms of Cupertino, 40 years in Silicon Valley on the border of San Jose and Cupertino as well. And then on the shores of the Pacific Ocean, the Britannia Arms Capitola, 10 years down there as well, too. Britannia Arms, Dianza.com for Cupertino, Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola as well. All right, back with you in studio. Charlie O, Vasu Party here. The NFL games, we talked about the Cardinals and the Packers last night, 24-21. Green Bay over Arizona, both teams 7-1. Green Bay with the number one seed. Let's move on to Friday. We've got interesting games going on Friday this week. Those are the lines that we'll have for you. The Buffalo Bills are 4-2. They had a bye. I'm sorry, Sunday. You're right.
We haven't hit NFL on Friday, please.
Yeah, we haven't hit college yet. This is a Friday football show for Week 8. The continuation on Sunday. Vasu Party Charlie O here. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube Live. There you go.
It's okay, folks. He watched the replay of the game at midnight. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. The Buffalo Bills are 4-2. They came off their bye last week. The Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback. No sign of Deshaun Watson yet. 14 and 48.5 in Buffalo. Buffalo, I still think one of the top teams in the NFL right now. The two losses they've had were by their own doing. They could easily be 6-0. In the AFC right now as well. Probably have the best record. Atlanta has won 3 in a row. They got the game-winning kick last week against the Giants. They're a 3-point favorite against the Christian McCaffrey less. And as Sam Darnold coming back to reality here, the Carolina Panthers are 3-4. They've lost 4 in a row. Atlanta, a 3-point favorite, 46.5 against Carolina. Philadelphia Eagles, I didn't think they'd be favored against anybody, but then you've got the Detroit Lions, 0-7. Eagles 2-5. Eagles 3.5, 48 the total there at Detroit. Indianapolis, who's won 2 out of 3, including their win last Sunday night over the 49ers. Derrick Henry has run wild the last 3 weeks, yet the Colts are a 2.5-point favorite.
I do not understand that one.
How you doing, Kent Sterling? 51 the total versus Tennessee in Indianapolis. The Rams are going to go to Houston after Arizona got done with Houston last week and then they had to come back on short rest against Green Bay. 14.5 points at Houston, 47.5. Houston just traded Mark Ingram back to his original team to the New Orleans Saints.
Good for Mark.
Good for Mark Ingram. Davis Mills still a quarterback for Houston. Defense has played okay for them, but this is a Rams team that's coming in on fire. They're 6-1, and they're trying to fight in that NFC West. This loss by Arizona certainly helped the Rams' cause going into this week, and Arizona will still lead the division because Arizona has the head-to-head over the Rams with the victory at SoFi back in week 4. 47.5 the total for the Rams in Houston. Cincinnati, 10.5 at the Jets. When was the last time the Bengals were a road favorite? It was Sanskrit the last time the Bengals were a favorite on the road. 10.5 and 43. Granted, it is the New York Jets. The Bengals 5-2 atop the AFC North. They just demolished the Baltimore Ravens last weekend in Baltimore. Not an easy thing to do. Ravens licking their wounds as they have the bye week this week. But the Jets, 1-5, coming off their bye week. They've already had their bye week, but they
just
got beat up
54 points to Matt.
Yeah, they just gave up 54 points to New England last week. Robert Saleh finding out that it's not that great to be a head coach. Not his fault. Certainly the Jets organization has a lot to do with this. Zach Wilson, I still like Zach Wilson. I still like some of the players they got. And they do have a win this year. 1-5 for the Jets, 10.5.
Also, let me give a little pep talk to Jets fans, okay? Yeah. Jets fans, calm down. It's Robert's first year there. Your organization's been a mess. You don't turn it around in 1 year. Give the man some time, okay? He's a good guy. He's a good coach. The 49ers, part of the 49ers mess is that Robert Saleh's gone.
Not there, yeah.
Okay, so just take a deep breath. It's all going to be okay.
Cincinnati, 10.5, 43 at the Jets in the final early game of the early window games. The final 2 early window games are the Cleveland Browns, a 3.5-point favorite against Pittsburgh, 42. I'm not sure about that. Baker Mayfield says he's going to play through that torn labrum that he's got and that bad shoulder that he's got. That could be pretty risky for them. But they're in Cleveland this weekend. 4-3 Browns against the Steelers, who are coming off a bye at 3-3, 3.5 and 42. And then the Chicago Bears are going to host the 49ers. Actually, let me do this here real quick while we're talking about it. San Francisco, a 4-point favorite at the Bears, 39.5 the total there. Jimmy Garoppolo going home to Chicago. He's going to have about 100 people in the stands. It might settle him down a little bit. Did not think the 49ers, I mean, this says a lot about the Bears right now too, but the 49ers, a 4-point favorite at Chicago, 39.5. Justin Fields has looked good, but he's also looked bad. Last week was about as bad as he looked in any game that I've seen. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are really good. We know that, but that was just an embarrassment. It was 31-0 in the second quarter. Those of you that missed my conversation with Doug Plank, we talked about it. They just did not look good first half. The Buccaneers only got 3 points in the second half. Credit some of the Bears defense, but also credit the fact that the game was over midway through the second quarter. It was already 31-0 at that point. So here's the early window, Charlie. The games you're looking at so far.
Well, one of the games that I'm watching very closely for a couple of reasons. One, because I helped cover the 49ers. But Vasu, that game between the 49ers and the Bears, that has earmarks to me of a trip-up game if I've ever seen it. Because for the 49ers.
Okay.
Because they're playing horribly and they're going into one of the toughest stadiums in all of the NFL to play in. You've got a Bears team that's hurting. You've got a quarterback who's potentially very explosive. I mean, I think that kid is as talented as they come. And they need something good to happen. And you've got a 49ers defensive backfield that is horrible. I mean, there's just no other way to describe it. They're horrible. Why am I doing Stephen W. Smith today?
Stephen A. Smith, yeah.
Why am I doing that? Anyway, they're terrible. So it's going to give them a chance. The offense for the 49ers was in total disarray last week. This is potentially a Bears get healthy game. This could end. They have the potential to end the 49ers season. And I have no confidence in the 49ers going into this, and the Bears need something to shore them up. If this game were in San Francisco, I'd feel totally different. But this game being in Chicago, I'm watching it close. Because I think it's pivotal for the 49ers this week, and I have no confidence in them. I'm interested in that Pittsburgh Cleveland game just because I'm interested in nothing else in watching Baker Mayfield's health. I mean, seriously. I mean, we're gonna learn very quickly how bad that injury is. And that'll tell us everything we need to know, because as much as I like Case Keenum, he's not going to take him to the promised land. So we need to know what the health is of Mayfield. So I'm watching that one with very, very closely. And the other game that I like there that I was watching is I'm going to watch that Titans Colts game just because I like Derrick Henry, and I can watch that guy play all day long.
Let me give you a little update on the standings here. Now that we're in week 8, next week will be just a little after the halfway point of a 17-game schedule. Remember, we're in 17 games this year. The Cincinnati Bengals have the top spot in the AFC. Las Vegas at 5-2 and Tennessee at 5-2. The three teams are at 5-2. Buffalo at 4-2 right now. They're the 4th seed. Baltimore at 5-2, the Chargers at 4-2, the Cleveland Browns are the 7th team right now at 4-3. Who's number 8? Pittsburgh. To your point, that game very important, because if Pittsburgh comes out with a victory, all of a sudden that flip-flops and Pittsburgh becomes the 7th seed and Cleveland becomes the 8th seed. Again, there's still 9 weeks to go, but still it's very important in terms of playoff positioning. The Patriots, the Colts are 9-10. Kansas City is 11. Denver is 12. The Jets, Jacksonville, Miami, and Houston bring up the last 4. As far as the early window goes, we talked about Green Bay and Arizona from last night. What a game it was, 24-21 by Green Bay. Green Bay, the 1 seed at 7-1. Arizona, the 2 seed, 7-1. They'll remain in first place in the NFC West with the Rams because they have the tiebreaker on them regardless of what the Rams do this weekend. Tampa Bay is 3 at 6-1. Dallas came off their bye. They're 5-1. They've got the Sunday night game against Minnesota, questionable if Dak Prescott's going to play on Sunday night. The Rams are 6-1 in the 5 spot. The Saints are 4-2. They came off their win on Monday night over Seattle, a lucky win, barely winning. I shouldn't say lucky, but barely winning over Seattle on the road against Geno Smith. The Vikings hold the 7 spot right now at 3-3 in the 7 spot. They're coming off their bye. They're playing the Cowboys, as we said, on Sunday night. And here's the reason why that 49ers, as far as interest in games that I'm going to, obviously the 49ers and Bears game, very interesting to me as a Bears fan. But here's why also very important for the Bears. The Bears are 3-4. The number 8 team is the Atlanta Falcons, who are 3-3 and have had a bye already. The Falcons are playing Carolina. They could easily lose to Carolina, and the Bears could jump up into the 8th spot. They are only a half a game back in the Minnesota Vikings in the division and also for that 7 seed in the playoffs. It's a huge game for them. Now, again, 9 games to go, but still, you want to get some momentum going. And if you're going to try and make the playoffs with Justin Fields as your quarterback and that defense is still really good, this is an important game. For the love of me, I don't see how the 49ers are a 4-point favorite. I think that's too high for the 49ers on the road. I could see a pick 'em. I could see a -1 because their skill players may be a little bit better than Chicago's skill players overall right now. But the defense, you can't tell me the 49ers defense is a lot better than the Chicago Bears defense for them to be a 4-point favorite on the road. That's one avenue of that. And then you roll on to Carolina at 10, San Francisco 11, Washington at 12, who I thought was going to be better. I think a lot of people thought Washington was going to be better. Philadelphia, the Giants, Seattle, and Detroit go. Or as far as interest, I said Chicago and San Francisco of interest to me. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, for the reasons that we talked about in the AFC North and the AFC wildcard. I'm interested in Philadelphia and Detroit because I'm very interested to see how the Lions makers came up with Philadelphia as a 3.5-point favorite. I'm sure that's a byproduct of the Lions being 0-7, but they've played tough games. They almost beat Minnesota. They almost beat Baltimore if it wasn't for a 68-yard field goal by Justin Tucker. They almost they got blown out by Cincinnati, and then they had a tough game last week as well too. So they've had a chance to win 3 or 4 games, and I got a feeling that Philadelphia's defense is not good. If Jared Goff can do anything like he did in the Rams the last few years before coming over here this year, that Philadelphia secondary and that linebacking crew could get about 300 yards thrown on them on any given weekend. And the 3.5-point favorite, I'm looking at Detroit as probably one of my picks. You get our picks on Sunday at noon Eastern, but I like Detroit a lot in this game at 3.5.
By the way, I heard this morning, CBS Sports HQ, a guy came on, one of the analysts came on and talked about that golf probably is done. You know, that if he doesn't perform well in this game, we might as well look at him as being done as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Was he watching the game last week? I mean, come on. He got stuck on the worst team in the National Football League. Of course he's not doing well. And then you look at what he's done and you go, man, he's done pretty amazing for being on the worst team in the National Football League.
No doubt.
I mean, the freaking Lions are worse than the Houston Texans.
I don't know about that. I think they got better players.
I do.
Well, we can debate that another time. But the fact is that Houston has been blown out in a lot of their games. The Lions have had a chance to win 3 games, and that's
anyway, yeah, okay. But anyway, anybody who tells you that golf is done in the National Football League,
I agree with that.
You know,
totally
run from them. They know not. I mean, the poor guy, and folks, he wasn't the problem in LA. He really wasn't. But LA couldn't ignore that trade. It was the right trade for them at the right time. Sometimes it really is true. We talk about this in sports. Sometimes a change of venue will make a big difference for a player and it will turn things around. And that's what that was. but Goff is not a bad quarterback. I mean, there are a lot of teams who would love if the Lions made him available right now, there would be a bidding war.
One other game I'm interested in is the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. How you doing, Kent Sterling in Indianapolis? The Colts are favored by 2.5. We'll see how the defense reacts to Carson Wentz and that running game that Indianapolis has right now. They played well. They took out the 49ers last Sunday night behind Carson Wentz. All right, before we get to the afternoon games, let's welcome in our intern, Nick Robinson, to the Make the Money and Run podcast Friday football show. Hello, Nick. How are you? Nick, an intern with us as well. He's got unique wagering angles on player props as well as different ideas on sports and sports wagering as well, too, a student at the University of Oregon. You are the type of guy, I remember I heard this joke the other day. I was listening to somebody on the radio talking about their bookie, and somebody said something about the World Series. They said something like, oh, you got to change that bet now. He goes, I can't change that bet because my bookie doesn't get out of lab until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there you go.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go. Intern Nick Robinson, welcome in. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Good. We just finished up the early window of the game, so I'm going to let you have a minute here. What do you like in the early window games in terms of interest? You don't need to make selections now. We'll do that on social media like we always do. But some of the early morning games of interest right there you see on the lines.
Yeah, of course. So I think Detroit is definitely a sneaky play this weekend. I think they can somehow squeak out.
Did you hear me when I said that? Or
I did not.
Okay.
No. But I heard Charlie saying Goff isn't too bad of a quarterback, and I agree. He's not the worst quarterback. They've been very, very close in many games, and they're just losing by, 1, 2, 3 points. So they've been really unlucky. I don't think Philly can run away with this one. I don't think Philly's that great of a team, and I think Detroit will rally the troops and get this first win. So I like Detroit this week, and also Buffalo. I think they're going to run away, steamroll. So there's a couple games have some value this weekend.
Let me ask you what you thought of last night's game. We went in depth in last night's game. It was a terrific game. Looked like the Packers without Adams and Lazard were going to be shorthanded. And here they are. They come out. They've got number 12 behind center, obviously under center. And Randall Cobb threw on the youth genes and caught the 2 touchdown passes. And then the miscommunication at the end. Right now the Packers have the lead in the NFC by virtue of the head-to-head. What'd you think of the game as a fan? What'd you think of the game as a sports wagerer? Because 6 points is a lot for Aaron Rodgers, and he proved it again last night, Nick.
Yeah, last night was fantastic. I think a lot of people wrote off Aaron Rodgers just purely on the fact that Devontae Adams was out, and we saw that a lot last year, but he still won. They still find ways to win. It's Aaron Rodgers. He's a game manager. He can make anything happen at any given time. That's why he's so great. That's why he's going to be a Hall of Famer. So I don't think you can write off Aaron Rodgers at any moment. And it was just a fantastic game, and interesting to see that Adams was out before the game, and then Hopkins, the other star receiver on the Cardinals, went out mid-game. So it's kind of like everyone was just in their backups. But Cobb showed out. So did a couple other players on the Cardinals, like James Conner. He had a great game. But I think it's really tough for the Cardinals to not only lose in the last play when Kyler throws a pick, but also Kyler got hurt that game and on that play. So that's kind of like a double whammy for them. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Vasivada Party Charlie O here with intern Nick Robinson, the Make the Money and Run podcast Friday football show, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Capitola and Cupertino. Check them out if you're in Silicon Valley or if you're on the beaches in the Pacific Ocean near Santa Cruz. Head over to Capitola and enjoy some weather and some NFL, NCAA, World Series, NBA, NHL action as well. All right, we hit the early morning games. Let's go to the afternoon games, the later window games. The Seattle Seahawks coming off their loss on Monday night to the Jacksonville Jaguars. 3.5, 44 the total there. The Chargers are at home. They're going to face the Patriots. Low point spread here, 4.5, 49.5 versus the Patriots. Denver 3 at home against the Washington football team. Broncos 3-4. They've lost 4 in a row. I believe they were coming off a bye last week as well, too. No, they played last week. So they're 3-4. And the Washington football team is 2-5. 44.5. Tampa Bay 4.5 on the road, 49.5 at the Saints. A big NFC South game down there, but yet they're still giving the Buccaneers a 4.5-point favorite. Hopefully they're not basing on that Bears game last week. Minnesota on Sunday night, 2.5, 53. They're favored over Dallas, who's 5-1. The Vikings in the 7th spot at 3-3, but there's a question if Dak Prescott's going to play on Sunday night or not. And then Monday night, the Kansas City Chiefs coming off that embarrassing loss last week, 9.5-point favorites against the New York Giants, 52 the total. We don't need to spend much time on Monday. We can do that at the end of the show as well too. We'll do that on Monday on the 3 o'clock edition of the Make the Money and Run podcast on Monday afternoon. So afternoon window, I'll start with Charlie. What do you think about the afternoon window?
Well, first of all, I'm just fascinated by that line in that Patriots-Chargers game. I mean, has anybody that's setting those lines seen the Patriots? I mean, seriously. I mean, I know they put up some points last week, but they were playing the Jets. I mean, come on. I mean, first of all, they're going across the country to play the Chargers. And, I don't understand that one. That'll be interesting to see. I saw some people talking about the Jags upsetting Seattle. Now, I know that Geno's the quarterback for the Seahawks, but come on, really?
Trevor Lawrence is playing better, and their defense is not bad, and they do have a win now. And I'm not totally unsold on that.
Yeah,
right
and
now,
I'm prettier today than I was yesterday. Come on.
Right. The offense for Seattle is not very good. And
Nick liked that one. Nick liked that line right there. Nick saw me yesterday. He's going, really? I saw him yesterday. He didn't look any prettier than I don't know. I like that. Washington, Denver, who cares? Those two teams. And and the Dallas Minnesota game could be good. That all depends on whether Dak's there or not. If Dak's not there, go get drinks with your friends.
Well, there's game 5 of the World Series if that game turns out to be a dud anyway on Sunday night to begin with. So
that's true. That's true.
All right, Nick, Sunday games, the afternoon window. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so I like the Buccaneers a lot. I think they're just a better team overall than the Saints, even though the Saints are at home. But the Saints didn't look that good last week, especially with Jameis. He underthrew a lot of balls, overthrew a lot of balls. But I think the Buccaneers are just a better team. Like Charlie said, I'm not touching the Washington Broncos game. That is going to be an ugly game. Defensive, I think low scoring, so maybe even the under. But I'm also all over the Chargers minus 4.5. I don't think the Patriots are that competent of a team. Mac Jones is a rookie, so I think the Chargers are just going to come out and steamroll after their last few weeks.
The Chargers had a rough week against the Ravens 2 weeks ago. They come off their bye. I'm sure they've looked at the tape and they want to compete in that AFC West right now. In terms of the AFC West, the Raiders are 5-2. The Chargers have the bye, so they're right there with them. The Chiefs and Broncos, both 3-4. That total on Monday night kind of intrigues me. 52. I know the Giants can score a little bit. They're always missing Barkley and Galladay and other guys on that team. Daniel Jones is kind of a wild card there. Maybe this is a chance for Kansas City to get healthy with Tyreek Hill, my fantasy football receiver as well, too, and Mahomes. After last week, our friend Doug Plank did the game against Tennessee last week where they did nothing against the Titans last week, and this is a chance for them to maybe make some ground up in the AFC West. I mean, you look at it, they're only 2 back in the loss column of the Raiders and the Chargers, and it's not like the Raiders and Chargers are world beaters right now. Tennessee's 5-2, Cincinnati is 5-2, Baltimore is 5-2. I guess the first tiebreaker would be conference record if they're out of division. So Tennessee is 4-1, the Raiders are 4-1, Baltimore is 4-2, Cincinnati 3-0, but Cincinnati already leads their division by virtue of beating Baltimore. So I guess between the other 3 teams, it would be Vegas and Tennessee, and then the Ravens if you take conference records as far as top record seeds going into that. So very interesting Sunday coming up in the NFL. We might have had the best game on Thursday night, but there are some intriguing matchups both in the early window and in the afternoon window. Of course, Sunday night if Prescott plays, that's a big deal as well too. All right, when we come back on the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola, we will have the NCAA outlook. Nick will stay with us and talk about the NCAA. A lot of top 25 games that are good. Had a couple of games already played yesterday. Charlie had Troy over Coastal Carolina. They did cover. And then we got a couple of games tonight and then top 25. And then we'll hit the individual conferences as we go on. All right, the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola are sponsors. Join them at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com and then Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, and you can reach them and get to them as well too. Make the Money and Run Friday football show will continue in 30 seconds with the NCAA breakdown with our intern Nick Robinson, Voss Nevada Party. Charlie O here with you. See you in 30. This is the Make the Money and Run Friday Football Show podcast, Friday, October 29th, 2021. We're 3/4 of the way into the show. If you missed any of it, you can download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, and download, subscribe, and check us out. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, the Britannia Arms of Capitola. You can check them out. Britannia Arms of Cupertino, the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. You can check them out at 408-252-7262. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com. 40 years in Silicon Valley, the border of Cupertino and San Jose, as well as our new sponsor is the same Britannia Arms, different venue on the Pacific Ocean in Capitola, on the Capitola Village, Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, 831-464-2583. No better place to watch a game with the ocean behind your ears, watching the NFL Sunday Ticket, NCAA football on Saturdays, and then, of course, NBA, NHL, World Series Game 3 tonight. All right, we already hit the NFL. Both windows of the early games and the later games. Really good games this week. Of course, Green Bay won last night, 24-21 over Arizona. We move on, Charlie and Nick, to college football, the top 25. Lots of good games in the top 25, especially in the Big Ten. Just run through these real quick in the top 25. Wisconsin, 3.5. I have not seen a total that low in a long time in college football. 36 versus Iowa. Michigan, the big game in Michigan State, a 4-point favorite on the road at Michigan State. The ACC, very underrated Pittsburgh team, finally getting some recognition. 9-point favorite versus Miami. 61 the total if you haven't seen Kenny Pickett play. Terrific quarterback. Baylor, 2.5. 61 versus Texas. That'll be a good game. Texas, 95th in the country in defense, so this might be a Baylor game for them. Cincinnati, 26.5 in the American at Tulane. Iowa State on the road at West Virginia, 7.5 and 48. Oregon, 24.5 and 49 versus Colorado. You can see that game on Fox tomorrow in the middle game of the triple header. The Michigan State game will be first, Oregon, Colorado second, and then it'll go right in the World Series on Fox. 24.5 and 49 against a very bad Colorado team. Oklahoma 19.5, 66.5 Texas Tech. And then Georgia, the number one team at Florida. If you've never seen a game in Jacksonville between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Florida Gators, I forgot what they call it. The Georgia-Florida
the world's largest cocktail
Yes,
party.
I should have known that because I've attended it 3 times in my life when I lived down there in Florida, and it was right there. And I can tell people that if you have a chance to go, if you're a neutral fan and you want to go see that, either figure out where your seats are and either wear the red or the blue, because you will not be allowed in there. And that Florida-Georgia line right down the middle of the 50 is legit. It's in Jacksonville. It's at a neutral site. If they had it in Athens or they had it in Gainesville, somebody would die. So that's a good reason that they have it in a neutral site. And the band, now we'll venture out here a little bit, the Florida-Georgia line, the country music band Florida-Georgia line, huge football fans, and they named their band after the Florida-Georgia 50-yard line. So that's where a little music history there, just like Fight for Fighting was for the NHL, for the LA Kings. They were all big LA Kings fans, which is a dichotomy in music and a total waiver off the subject for me in terms of music. But after all, I did watch the replay of the game last night at midnight. So 14.5 points for Georgia, the number one team in the nation, at Florida, the world's largest cocktail party, 51 the total. Start with Nick this time with his college outlook. He's a college guy, University of Oregon student. What do you think about the top 25 matchups we got going on here?
So I think the Michigan State game is going to be electric. I think this is easily going to be the best game of the week. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I think Michigan State +4 has value because I think it'll be a really, really close game come to the end. And I think probably Michigan will win by a field goal, but Michigan State has the potential to do the same. So I think that'll be a really close game. Also, like you guys were talking about, Georgia, Florida, perfect name to their band. That's an amazing fact. I didn't know that one, but I think Georgia is going to steamroll them. So I think -14 is a little too low. I'm going to lay that one as well. And then Ole Miss Auburn is also going to be a great game on ESPN. And Auburn -3 is interesting
Let's
to
hold
me.
off on that. We'll hit that when we get to the conferences. But as far as the top 25 matchups, let's get through this, Charlie. What do you think about the early window of the top 25 here before we hit to the next round of the top 25?
Well, of course, I'm loving that Michigan State game because I used to live there and I used to go to those games.
You and Christine, who we just saw on Facebook, who's a big Michigan alum, she wants Michigan -4 tomorrow against Michigan State. So call your bookie for Christine.
It's I mean, it's hard to deny the fact that Michigan's playing so well this year. I mean, and in almost any given year between those two schools, the best talent goes to Michigan. I'm sorry. I mean, they just do. But that game is at Michigan State. And I mean, how intimidating that is. But if you've never been to Michigan State, that is an intimidating stadium as well. And they feed off that crowd. And so I got to tell you that I'm with Nick. A +4 there. I think it's going to be a very close game, and I'm kind of tempted on that one. I like that. I like that game a lot. And then I also in the cocktail party, they better drink a lot. If you're a Florida fan, drink a lot because that's the only thing you're going to enjoy in that game.
Lots of interest in the top 25 for me. Obviously, Michigan State, a big one for me. Wisconsin, Iowa, kind of interesting in that sense because Iowa was the talk of the town a few weeks ago after beating Penn State and then getting drubbed by Purdue, and then Purdue losing to Wisconsin. So here's Wisconsin at home, 3.5. I haven't seen a total that low in years in a college football game, 36 there. Oklahoma, 19.5. They had a tough time with Kansas last week for the first half. They ended up rolling. They were not going to cover 38.5 on the road. They only ended up winning by 12. Oklahoma 19.5 here against Texas Tech. Georgia, Florida. Georgia's defense is just too good. This is a neutral site game. If this was in Gainesville, I would say 14.5 might be too much in Gainesville right now. And then Oregon, 24.5 versus Colorado. I'm waiting for the real Oregon team to show up here, Nick, for the University of Oregon student here. And then the Baylor-Texas game is very interesting to me. 2.5, 61 there. Can see a lot of points in that game. Baylor's played really well this year offensively. Defensively, they've given up some points. But I don't know if I would take 2.5 points in Texas at Baylor right now. And then Cincinnati, number 2 in the country. They've been getting heavy point spreads. They haven't been covering these heavy point spreads, and Tulane can score some points. So I would think that 62 might be a low number for that game as well, too. All right, let's move on to the back half.
I got to drop in here for just a quick second.
Go ahead.
Not that this is a game I'm necessarily going to play, but a little trivia here. Duke and Wake Forest are going to meet up. Wake Forest at number 13. They're 7-0. The last time they started a season 7-0 was in 1944. And the team that they had to face in week 8 was Duke. And Duke beat them and blew up their undefeated season. So here we go. All these years later, 7-0. Here comes Duke. And they've got it on their mind. And the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, their rally cry all week has been avenge the 1944 team.
No doubt about it. As we lead into the back half of the top 25, Wake Forest is 16-point favorite, 71.5 versus Duke. Oklahoma State 30 versus Kansas, 54.5. Mississippi State, that's going to be an interesting game in the SEC. A 1-point favorite against Kentucky in that defense at home. 47 the total. Excuse me. Houston a pick'em versus SMU 62. They're at home. SMU in the top 25. Ohio State, one of the games of the night, 18.5. Penn State's offense is very, very, very vanilla, for lack of a better word. Sean Clifford left, Sean Clifford right, Sean Clifford throwing the ball down the middle. Right now, they don't have a running game. Defense has been suspect. 18.5 might not be enough for Ohio State, especially in the horseshoe. Notre Dame, North Carolina. Wouldn't surprise me if North Carolina pulls the upset here. Notre Dame 3.5, 62.5. Defensively, they have not stopped the pass this year. And USC had a chance to beat them last week, but they made some critical mistakes down the end. BYU 2.5 and 64. I believe I don't. Who are they playing? They're playing
Virginia.
They're playing Virginia, and Virginia's got a really good offense. I don't know why I didn't have that in there. Virginia 64 the total. Virginia can score. BYU's had their struggles, but the game of the night might be in the Mountain West. San Diego State, ranked number 21 in the country, going up against Fresno State. They've had big wins. They're a 1-point favorite at home, 44.5 against the Fresno State Bulldogs, who Charlie and I, being San Jose State alum, we don't really care for Fresno State. But if there's money involved, this might be a chance to jump on Fresno State. I'll start with Nick on this, on the back half. What do you think about the back half of the top 25 here, Nick?
Yeah, I think Fresno State has a real chance to upset here. I know it's not a big upset, only 1 point, but they're a really good team. I mean, they almost beat the University of Oregon week 1, so that was a tough one. And then I love, like you said, North Carolina. I think they can also have upset potential here against Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't look that good last week because USC, like you said, they gave up 18 catches to Drake London, who is one of the best wide receivers in the nation, but their secondary looked like Swiss cheese even to USC. And then also, I think Penn State, Ohio State has some value in it, but I'm going with Ohio State. I think they're going to run away with it. Ohio State is a fantastic team. Ever since they lost to us, Oregon, they have just turned on a different switch. They've been an entirely different team. So I don't think Penn State can even somewhat keep up with them. Like Vasu said, they've been dinking and dunking. They have no offensive mindset right now. So Ohio State looks like the dominant team in that one.
Charlie, go ahead.
Well, you know the game I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching that Fresno State San Diego State game. I mean that I don't care for either one of those teams historically I've called games between those two teams in San Jose State over the years. I got to tell you, if that game were in Fresno, it would be no question for me on who I would go with. The fact that that game is in San Diego, I don't know. I'm still waiting to see on that. I'm going to play that game just because it's one of those games where I can't stay away. It's like a moth to the flame. I'm going to play it, but I just don't know how I'm going to play it yet. Notre Dame, I agree with you guys. After last week, they had to be so up. This is a trip up game for them. I think they're going to be let down. North Carolina's a good team. I think the play there in that game, I know we're not picking games yet, but I'm going to tell you, the play in that game is North Carolina. I really believe that, and nothing would do my heart better right now because I don't like Brian Kelly anyway, and I would love to see him lose. That is my commentary right there on that game, and that's there going along, and that's kind of it for me in those games. Kentucky, Ole Miss, I don't know.
That's Mississippi State, not Ole Miss.
That SMU Houston game too. I know that's a game that probably won't get a lot of play, but just because SMU is still fighting up out of the ashes after the death penalty so many years ago, I have a place in my heart where I just root for that team, and I won't play that game, but I'm hoping they win.
Go ahead, Nick. You know what? I did miss Ole Miss, Auburn. Ole Miss is 10 in the country. Auburn 18. Auburn a 3-point favorite. 61 the total against Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. So you were talking about that game, so I'll let you start there with that.
I think that's going to be a really interesting game. I'm not too sure which way I'm leaning yet, but I think that's going to be one of the best games easily of the day. Any game that's like a top 20 matchup in Auburn always just has a high score, not even high scoring potential, but just it'll be a lot of fun. That stadium is just crazy. They always color coordinate very well, like whether it's white out or a different color. It's just crazy to watch. It's always an electric atmosphere. So I think Ole Miss has a chance to upset them, especially in Auburn. They're not amazing this year, but Auburn definitely looks really good right now. So especially at home, it'll be a crazy game to watch.
All right, let's get outside the top 25 here a little bit. We'll just hit all these conferences, just the big ones here in the ACC: Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Boston College, Clemson. First time out of the top 25 in years, 9.5 over NC State, and Louisville are also going to play. Who's Clemson playing? I forgot who Clemson's playing. They've got Florida State, I believe, is who they're playing. Yeah, they've got Florida State, Clemson 9.5, 47.5, North Carolina State 6.5. 56.5 in the ACC. And the Big 12, non-top 25, Kansas State 3.5 over TCU. Big 10, Maryland and Indiana 5.5 over Indiana, 49.5. Rutgers, pretty interesting matchup there with Illinois. I actually kind of like Rutgers at -1.5. Minnesota 7.5 at Northwestern. Our friend Dan Lust, our sports attorney Dan Lust, Nebraska 7.5 over the previously risen up to the top Purdue Boilermakers, who have come back down to earth after Wisconsin last week. 7.5 for Nebraska, 52.5. I'm not sure I wouldn't take the under in that game as well either. The Pac-12, you got Arizona State 16 and 53. Oregon State 1.5. They're playing for Pac-12 North Division Championship right now. They're tied with Oregon. They're at Cal 55.5 tomorrow. USC 21.5 versus Arizona. Utah 6.5 versus UCLA. Utah playing for the South Division. There 6.5, 60.5. And then a very interesting matchup. Washington thought to be better this year. Stanford 2.5, 47.5 at the farm on the farm tomorrow night. Late night football. We got some late night football with Stanford, UCLA, Fresno State, San Diego State, and who else do we have late night? Virginia, BYU. Also, some very interesting games late night, Charlie, in terms of NCAA football. But anything outside of the top 25 that interests you in any of those major conferences?
No. just no.
Well, I'd be interested in some of the Pac-12 games. I see all the Pac-12 games all the way. Missouri, the first time they're an 18-point favorite, double-digit favorite on the road, but it's Vanderbilt. Tulsa and Navy will go tonight in the American, and then Buffalo and Bowling Green go. The Mountain West is.
By the way, next week, Maction starts again.
Yes.
We get Tuesday, Wednesday, Maction starting to get next week.
Yeah, one game this week, Buffalo 13.5, 51.5 over Bowling Green. And then the Mountain West, Nevada Reno goes tonight against UNLV. How you doing, Casey? 20 at the point spread, 58.5. Saturday, Utah State, Hawaii. Our San Jose State Spartans going to be on Fox Sports 2 tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock right here at Spartan Stadium, 3 and 41 versus Wyoming. And then Boise State, 2.5 and 51.5 over CSU. All right, final takes on college football. I'll start with Nick.
Yeah, so I also am going to be very intrigued in the Pac-12 this week. I think the UCLA-Utah game has a lot of potential to be really close and come towards the end. I think that'll be a one-possession game when it all comes down to it. But I think UCLA will end up winning. They played really well against Oregon last week, and I think that'll translate into Utah. And also, Oregon State only being 1.5-point favorites kind of baffles my mind, especially how Cal is playing. They're not playing very well. They're 2-5. Oregon State is on fire right now, and they're 5-2. And it's been a while that they've been playing for the Pac-12 championship, or at least a chance to hoist it. So I think they're going to continue that and try to have an Oregon State Pac-12 championship in the end.
Go ahead, Charlie. Final takes on college football.
Michigan State, of course, has got my attention big time because I've been to those games a lot. North Carolina, Notre Dame, I'm focused in on, and I'm also very interested in the Ole Miss Auburn game. I think that's going to be a barn burner.
All right, don't forget to check us out every day, Monday through Friday by 6 Eastern on social media. We'll have the latest news and some of our selections for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday, don't forget, guys, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock on the West Coast. We'll have our Saturday picks 3 times Saturday, twice on Sunday. We include the NBA, the NHL, obviously the NFL, NCAA, and then we've got 2 World Series games on Saturday and Sunday after tonight as well, too. And we're here 3 times a week. We are sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com at 408-252-7262, and then the Britannia Arms of Capitola, Facebook.com, Britannia Arms /Britannia Arms, Capitola 831-464-2583. All right, Nick, as always, thanks for joining us. Charlie, we will talk to you next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. This is the Make the Money and Run Friday football show. We'll be back on Monday at 3 Eastern. Sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola. Basuvada Party, Charlie O here for the Make the Money and Run Friday football show. Have a great weekend. Good luck with your games. And as always, we will talk to you next week, and we will see you on Monday at 3 Eastern on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Take care, everybody.